Dawah was their life. And they used to remind each other. When they used to leave, they would recite to each other this surah. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ عَمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. They would recite this verse to each other to remind each other what? By time, verily, mankind, they are lost. Everybody is lost. Everybody is finished. Everyone is destroyed. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ عَمَنُوا, except those people who have iman, true faith, وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, and they do righteous actions. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ, and they join together in the teaching of truth. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ, and they join together in the teaching of sabr, patience. We need to work together. Tawasaw means they're joining together to do that thing. Okay? And so we need to cooperate with each other. We need to support each other. We need to help each other to call to the truth and to be patient in that. It's a very important thing. Cooperation in good and virtuous deeds. And again, a chapter on giving nasiha, the benefit of advising your brother. If you see a fault in your brother or your sister, you know that you should try to correct it. Help your brother whether he is the oppressor or the oppressed. Meaning, and if he's the oppressor, stop your brother doing the oppression. We're not just, by the way, here talking about rulers. You know, maybe you see a brother oppressing his wife. Maybe you see a wife oppressing her husband. It happens in England, you know. Maybe you see a man abusing his children. When I say abusing, maybe he, subhanallah, does not talk to them in a nice way. Maybe he, you know, admonishes them in front of others in a way that is not suitable. You know? So we should advise each other. The mirror, al-mu'min miratul mu'min. The believer is the mirror of the believer. You know, you try and remove it and you try and correct it. Okay? So, tendering good advice. And actually, my brothers and sisters, this is a characteristic that we can carry not beyond the realm of just the Muslims. Yes? I remember reading some statements by some scholars. I think Abdul Aziz ibn Baz, who was asked about, I see my neighbor doing some bad things who is not Muslim. And he said, you should advise them out of goodness. Advise them to stop that bad thing. And they will see the concern because it shows our concern. So, although we will see later, it doesn't necessarily fit, you could say, the strict methodology of giving dawah, but it's dawah in another sense, which we will talk about another. Showing your concern for another human being. That might be something that really moves their heart. It really touches them to see that you are concerned about them. Although maybe they don't like what you say, in the end you'll see they will notice, oh, that person cares about me. Okay, so this is something very important in our religion. Giving nasiha. The deen is nasiha. Okay? And then chapter 23, enjoining virtue and forbidding evil. Some of the actual ayat and hadith we're going to go from that chapter into in a little bit more depth. And finally, the chapter 23, the divine wrath on a person who verbally enjoins virtue and prohibits vice, but acts contrarily to that. And how hateful it is in the sight of Allah that you say what you don't do. This ayah was revealed concerning the Jews. The Jews in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they used to invite people to birr. Birr is like taqwa, but actually birr, we could say, is more than taqwa. Taqwa is to be mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, it is to obey Allah with a light from Allah, hoping for Allah's reward. And it is to leave disobedience to Allah with a light from Allah, fearing Allah's punishment. This is taqwa. But birr is what we could say righteousness. Yeah? It's more than taqwa. It's a person who excels in that. And so the Jews used to invite people to bir, to be really righteous, but they didn't do that themselves. In fact, of course, amongst the greatest of the crimes that they committed was they denied Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. While they knew in their books about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they knew, but they denied him sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is something really hateful in the sight of Allah, that we should invite people to righteousness, but we ourselves don't act, or we act in a different way. There is a question here, right? If you are doing something yourself evil, like you're stealing, let's take an example, and then you see someone else stealing, according to this then, what should you do? Do you think? Stop stealing first? No. You should stop stealing, of course you should. But you don't need to stop stealing in order to tell someone else to stop stealing. A thief must still order another thief not to steal. Yes. A father who smokes will still order his children not to smoke. A man who drinks should still order someone else not to drink. Yes. There was one sheikh, his name has gone right out of my head right now. He died recently. I don't remember his name. Ahmed Shakir, a great sheikh from Egypt, a muhaddith from Egypt. He was asked about this question. He said, you know the hadith, well, I mentioned to you the hadith, that one of the people who will be in the most horrible situation on the Day of Judgment is a man who used to invite people to righteousness. So meaning this is someone now who makes it as if it's their livelihood, or they make it their what they do, to invite people to righteousness. So they invite people to that. Yet that person himself did not practice that righteousness. And he used to prohibit people from things, but he himself didn't prohibit those things. So on the Day of Judgment, he'll be going around Jahannam with his entrails trailing behind him like a donkey pulls when they're grinding the corn, like the donkey goes around that thing, he will go around the hellfire trailing his entrails. And the people will come to him and they will say, what's happened to you? We used to hear you inviting us to do good things and to leave us from bad things. And this man will say, I used to invite you to things that I didn't do it myself. And I used to prohibit you from things that I didn't do it myself, that I didn't leave it myself. That's his punishment. Ahmed Shakir said, if that's the punishment for the person who invited to virtue and called away from vice but failed to act upon it, what is the punishment going to be like of the person who failed even to invite to virtue and call to away from vice? This is what he said. Right? Okay. So, yes, although ideally, it depends on the situation. In general, you should really try to reform yourself. Especially if you really feel enthusiastic to give da'wah and to be amongst the da'is, then it is important that you reform yourself. Sometimes it is allowed also to talk about something yourself with the intention of being an admonition to yourself as well as to others. Yes. I remember one sheikh in my mosque where I work now, the Central Mosque in London, used to be really, he was very fat, okay? And I remember once he gave a khutbah, and his khutbah was about overeating. And actually, my brothers and sisters, I don't want to spoil your lunch, yeah? But actually, if we look to the hadith about how we should eat, actually, what did the Prophet say? He said, eat enough for the son of Adam is what keeps their back straight. In other words, enough for you to eat is what just keeps you walking. Enough energy to keep you walking. Yeah, but if you eat more than that, if it happens that you do, it should be a third for food. You know that. We all know the third for food, the third for liquid, and the third for air. But most of us think we should always fill a third and like that. No, the actual hadith says enough for the son of Adam is what keeps you. So he gave this long khutbah. The worst vessel that you give filled is your stomach, and so on and so forth. And we're all looking at him. Yani, we're all looking at him. So people asked him, in England they can be pretty tough with the imams, and he said, yes, I know, but I gave this khutbah for myself. And I gave this knowing that if I tell all the people, yani, then I must act on it. And mashallah, I didn't see him for maybe a year, and the next time I saw him on Hajj, he was thin, like a rake. I said, Shaykh Khalifa, what happened to you? And it was that khutbah. You, mashallah, you acted on it. So, alhamdulillah, you can do that as well. But there is a story also, yani, of a scholar who was asked, please admonish the people about this. He said, okay, but not now. And actually this went on for like months or weeks or I don't know, some time. Yeah? And eventually he gave the khutbah. So the person who was telling him, admonish the people, he said, what took you so long? He said, it took me that amount of time to practice the thing myself that I was going to call the people, or to leave that thing myself that I was going to call the people to leave. So yes, this is also a good thing. Some of it, a lot like dawah in general, is going to depend, my brothers and sisters, on the specific circumstances. And some of these things we're going to explore it, inshallah. Okay. We mentioned now the virtues of giving dawah. But now we want to look at the other side. We looked at the virtues. Let's look at the other side. What happens to people who don't give dawah? In other words, what is the punishment for abandoning dawah? This is very important, my brothers and sisters, because we want you to understand what is the status of this thing in Islam. The story of the Sabbath breakers. We all know the story, yes? Sabbath breakers. Very important story for every Muslim to know it and to understand it. Okay, what is this story? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran the story of the Sabbath breakers. A group of people who live by the sea. These were from the Bani Israel. Yeah? From the children of Israel. They had a village by the sea and they used to take their livelihood from fishing. Now, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, they had become used to disobeying Allah. In other words, they had started to do haram things. And when we start to do haram things, my brothers and sisters, Allah will send upon us without any doubt a fitna, a trial, a test. That is the consequence of doing haram. If you do bad things, Allah will send upon you a trial and a tribulation. Evil has appeared on the face of the land and the sea because of what men's hands have put forth. Evil in the world is a product of what the evil that we do. Evil breeds evil. When we do bad, bad things happen to us. If you got problems in your life, brothers and sisters, and you feel those problems are overwhelming you, believe me, you look to your sins. The Salaf, the people, the pious people of the early days of Islam, when their wives were giving them a hard time, they used to think, which sin have I committed? What sins have I? They didn't say, shut up woman, why are you talking? They would think, what have I done? This is Allah, He is sending this upon me because of something that I have done. And I always say to my wife, listen, if you talk to me like that, the kids will talk to you like that. Yes, you talk to me in a bad way, that's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will punish you. Your kids will behave with you like that. What comes around goes around. This is a fitna from Allah. You know, actually, every nation I think understands it. The Hindus, I think they call it karma. Yeah? They call it karma. It's actually a universal principle. What goes around comes around. What you give out, you get back. When you behave in an evil way, evil will happen. Yes, this is one of the answers, by the way, for why there are disasters and things like that. So, Allah says, thus did we make a trial of them, for they were given to transgression. Yeah? Allah sent them a test. Now, what a test this is. Imagine this is a village whose livelihood comes from fishing. And we know that in the Sharia that Allah gave to Musa, the Jews were prohibited, and still, that's what they follow. They were prohibited from doing any work on the Sabbath. They're not allowed to do any work on the Sabbath at all. Now imagine, your livelihood is from fishing. Every day you are allowed to fish, there are no fish in the sea, nothing. But on the one day, when you're not allowed to touch the fish, you're not allowed to go fishing, the fish appear in the sea as if they are so many, they're jumping out of the water. Now, brothers and sisters, don't you think that if something like that happened, you would say, this is a test from Allah. On the one day I'm not allowed to fish, all the fish appear, and the rest of the week there's nothing. This is from Allah. Allah's trying to tell me something here. And then inshallah you would rectify yourself and change your ways. No, not these people. What did they do? What they did is they set their nets the day before, and then they collected the nets the day after, and they said, we didn't actually do any work on the Sabbath. We did our work the night before, and we did our work the day after, so we didn't actually work on the Sabbath. They thought they were being really clever. I know you don't speak Urdu, they say chalaq, okay? Meaning really cunning, right? They thought they were being really clever. Actually, they still have that characteristic, some of them. For example, the Torah tells them that the pig must not touch the land of Israel. Yeah? They have pig farms in Israel, built on stilts. See? Like on the stage. And you see, look, the pig is not touching the land. Clever, huh? Yeah, and we have Muslims like that too. So many Muslims like that. They do similar things to try and get around the Sharia. The big one, of course, is with riba. How many halal so-called Islamic banks, right? Like a halal pig. Doesn't matter how much you get a pig, you say Bismillah, read Surah Fatiha, read the whole Quran and slaughter. It's not going to make it halal. Haram is haram. Most of these Islamic so-called financing is nothing Islamic at all. They just change the name. Instead of calling it riba, they call it profit. It's the same thing, trying to find ways around Allah's Sharia. But in reality, brothers and sisters, the reason why we find it so difficult and we find it so difficult to do anything without riba is because this is a punishment from Allah upon us and a test because we've left His deen. Actually, this country here, India, when it was under the Mughals, had the most sophisticated finance system in the world at the time. Subhanallah, the history of the Mughals and the Muslims was amazing when we had the rulership and we were strong upon Islam. Now we are humiliated. When we come back to our deen, we know in the time when the Mahdi comes, for example, the Prophet mentioned, he will give wealth away so much. A person will come and he will give and give and give. He will feel embarrassed. Yes. And now we're struggling for every rupee. This is a punishment, my brothers and sisters. We need to be thinking, subhanallah, what have we done wrong? The Muslims need to wake up as an ummah. Like this village of people. Instead of trying to find ways round, we need to come back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now in this village, there were three groups of people that we can identify. If we look at this, when some of them said, so this is one group by the way here, when some of them said, that's one group. Okay? So there is one group saying to another group, why do you preach to a people whom Allah will destroy or visit with a terrible punishment? So there was a group of preachers. And the preachers replied, said the preachers, to discharge our duty to your Lord, and maybe they will fear Him. So we can see three groups. Group number one is breaking the Sabbath. Group number two is preaching. They're going to the Sabbath breakers. They're saying, fear Allah. Don't do this thing. This is wrong. And then there's another group. And this other group, they're not breaking the Sabbath. And they're saying to the preachers, why do you bother with these ones whom Allah is going to destroy them? Yeah? So we can see three groups. The preachers, the breakers, and the mind your own business. I go to the masjid, I do my duty, I do my namaz, I do my, I do my roza, my fasting, I do that. It's mind my own business. And when they find people preaching, why are you bothering? Allah's going to destroy them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes on to say the meaning of it. When they disregarded the warnings that they had been given, we rescued those who forbade evil. What is important here, my brothers and sisters, only one group was rescued. Only one group. The group that was rescued were those who forbade evil. We visited the wrongdoers with a grievous punishment. What was the punishment? Allah turned them into apes. Transformed them into monkeys. And according to the Mufassirun, for 3 days they lived on the earth as monkeys, then Allah destroyed them. That's a severe warning, my brothers and sisters. Because you know what? Allah included those people in His punishment. The people who are not giving, they didn't break the Sabbath, but they were also not giving dawah and they were not warning the people. Allah punished them along with the others. The only ones He rescued are the ones who are giving dawah. This is a very severe warning. A very severe warning. It is something we must do. It is our duty as Muslims to distance ourselves and remove ourselves from people who do evil. We are obliged to do that as believers. It is not appropriate, my brothers and sisters, as callers to Islam, my brother, I'm going to tell you something very important here. You are all here learning about dawah. You are da'is. Is it appropriate for you, for example, to go to weddings that are mixed with music and haram things taking place? Your callers to Allah. Your people, the people look to you and you go and you part. If you are mixing and doing these haram things, then you have given an excuse to everybody to do these haram things. They will say, sister such and such was there, brother this and that was there. And everyone else who makes you an excuse, you will get the punishment. You will get the punishment of everyone who makes you as an excuse and does an evil thing. You will get their punishment. I know we have this in England. Oh, but it's my brother. It's my brother. I don't care if it's your brother or your own child. My wife, it happened to me. We were invited to her uncle's, her niece's, her cousin's wedding. So that's her uncle's children. They had a disco organized, a DJ. People dance. These are Muslims. Muslims. He wanted me to come and give the khutbah. I said, I felt, alhamdulillah, really privileged. But I said, uncle, to tell you the truth, you see, I go around telling people all over the country and all over the world that it's haram to go to these things. Am I going to say that to everyone and then go myself? I said, what you're doing is haram and I can't come, it's haram. You segregate it and get rid of the music, I'll come. Me and my wife, we didn't go. And I will not go to things like that. How can a da'i do something like that? How can a Muslim do something like that? Forget even a da'i. This is something very important. And if you participate in this evil, you are one of the evildoers. You are one of them. It is your obligation to distance yourself from it. So this is a very important principle. Very important. And this, I know I mention this evil because I know it's very prevalent. And I'm sure here in India it's prevalent too. But you know what? If you start making a stand, then people will change. They will have to change. Why should you give in to the people who are corrupt and wrong? Why? They are wrong. They are doing the evil thing. If the good people give in and start siding themselves and behaving with the evil people, then there will be nothing but munkar on the face of the earth. Where's it going to stop, by the way? You tell me, where are you going to stop? Huh? They have dancers next with saris and wet saris. I don't know what they're going to be doing in the next 10 years. Where are you going to draw your line? Oh, now that's just gone too far. No, because you'll just be going down the line with everyone else. So we have to. The Prophet ﷺ, there is a hadith, I think it's in Sahih Muslim, where Jibreel was sent to destroy a village of people. When Jibreel came to this village, he found someone worshipping Allah. And Jibreel went to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, "Oh Allah, I found amongst this village of people one of your ibads, one of your worshippers." Allah said to Jibreel, "Start with him. Start with him. Because he lived amongst these evil people and displeasure did not even cross his face." Yes. Start with him. So my brothers and sisters, what a severe warning to us. If we fail to enjoin what is right and we fail to forbid what is wrong, then surely Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "By him in whose hands is my soul, you must enjoin what is right and forbid what is wrong, or else Allah will send upon you a chastisement and you will make dua and Allah will not accept it." In fact, if you look in the books that talk about how to make dua, the conditions of dua, what prevents your dua from being accepted, this is the dalil. That when you stop enjoining the right and forbidding the wrong, the people will make dua and Allah will not accept the dua. And also it is proof that when we stop dawah and we stop inviting amr bin ma'ruf wal nahy al munkar, it's what it's called. Amr bin ma'ruf means inviting to the good, nahy al munkar, and prohibiting the evil. You must enjoin the right and forbid the wrong. You must do it. Or else Allah will send upon you a chastisement. Allah will send you a punishment. There it is. You don't enjoy what is right and forbid what is wrong, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will punish you. Aisha, the Prophet ﷺ was talking about, woe be to the destruction that will fall upon the Arabs. And Aisha asked, will we be punished while there are righteous people amongst us? And the Prophet ﷺ said, yes. When evil is more than the good. Agreed upon, meaning it's in Bukhari and Muslim. So, when the evil becomes dominant, my brothers and sisters, we'll all suffer, including the righteous people. Everyone suffers. Meaning this is the imperative. We have to stop the evil. Nu'man, not Nu'man, it's Nu'man ibn Bashir relates that the Prophet ﷺ, this is an example. The Prophet, this is a beautiful example. I haven't put the whole hadith, I will mention to you the hadith. He said, the example of the one who obeys Allah and the one who disobeys Allah is like the passengers on a boat. The hadith goes on to describe this boat. That there are some people, there are two levels on the boat. And there are people on an upper level and the people on the lower level. The people on the upper level have the water. And the people on the lower level, they begin to get thirsty. Now they don't want to disturb the people on the upper level. So what do? They start to drill a hole in the boat to get the water. The Prophet said, now if those people on the upper level don't stop those people on the lower level, then everyone will be destroyed. This, my brothers and sisters, is a very beautiful hadith and an important example. Who are the people on the upper level? The people on the upper level are, of course, first of all, the scholars. The scholars, the du'at, the imams, the leaders from amongst the community, whether they're religious or not. The people who are respected in the community, they have the water. Meaning, in this case, they have the knowledge, and also, in other cases, they have the power to prohibit things and to enjoin things. And the people are thirsty. They want knowledge. They want guidance. Yes? In fact, the people want to be guided. They want those people who have knowledge and authority to guide them on the right way. That's actually what they want. They don't want to be left to go any which way. But you know what? Because those people are on an upper level, they're up there somewhere, they feel shy to go to them. And what do? Then they start to invent their own things. They start to take from what they imagine is another source of water from outside that area. And they start, by doing that, if they did that, they will start to invent bid'ah. And then they will start to do evil things because they will not be guided with knowledge. And if they do that, then everything will sink. It reminds me of that saying. The sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad. It's like the ark of Noah. Whoever is in it is saved. Everything else is destroyed. That's the reality. Following the sunnah is like the ark of Noah. It's a similar idea. You need to be in the sunnah. So my brothers, if those people on the top level, if those scholars and those imams and those du'at and those leaders of society don't stop those people, we'll all be destroyed. Yes. So this is the imperative, this is the consequence, this is the result if we abandon enjoining the right and forbidding the wrong. Now, one of the brothers, someone asked about shaitan and how he uses us. So maybe we'll mention this now. You see, my brothers and sisters, one of the biggest problems that all of us will face in our interaction with our Muslim brothers and sisters and with the non-Muslims is this psychological problem. Most of us as human beings are often very concerned about what other people think about us. If I do this, what will such and such say? And I know especially, actually my experience of, India is people are very polite. They're very, mashallah, it's good to be polite. But it's not good to be polite when your politeness prohibits you from stopping an evil or from correcting someone. Rather, you should find a polite way to correct that person, right? Okay? Yes. I'll give you an example. There was one da'i, one caller to Islam, sitting having dinner in a restaurant. It was a halal restaurant. But as you find in restaurants, people mixing, and it was a very popular restaurant. And so all sorts of people used to come, including, of course, lots of pretty girls and, often not very well dressed. And this particular da'i his eyes were, we could say, wandering. His eyes were wandering here and there. And the brother sitting next to him, subhanAllah, what a way to give advice. He was a young boy. He turns and says to this da'i, he's not a young boy, but he's a young man, I should say. He turns and says to this da'i, "Oh Sheikh, I've always had this problem of being able to lower my gaze. How did you deal with this problem?" And when the young man said this to the da'i realized, oh, he's talking about me. But what a beautiful way to give advice. Instead of saying, "Sheikh, astaghfirullah," you're looking at all those people. What a beautiful way to remind someone in the way that you want that person to give you advice. And then that person will think, astaghfirullah. You say, brother, it is of course always a problem and we should do this. But this is a very beautiful, if you want to give nasiha to someone, you will always find a way. There's the story of Hassan and Hussein, famous story. how there was an old man making wudu and he was not making it properly. And they were, young men. So they thought, he's an old man, really respectful person in Islam. We can't just tell him, you're doing it wrong. And so they thought, how can we think of a way? They said, okay, what we will do is we will go and say to him, this is what they did. They went to him and they said, Sheikh, could you watch us making wudu? Because you're doing it different from us and we wanted to know, could you tell us where we're going wrong? Yeah? So they made wudu, of course, perfectly, as they knew from the Prophet ﷺ. And the old man said, of course, actually you're right. I was doing it wrong. So they found a really beautiful way, to, give their advice. Yes? So be polite. Being polite is very good. But don't let your politeness stop you from doing your duty. Find a polite way and a nice way to say what you have to say, to enjoin what is right and to forbid what is wrong. So, as I said, one of the things that shaitan really plays with is what will other people think about me? But sometimes, if not very often, my brothers and sisters, dawah necessitates opposing the people. Will always come a time when the things you are going to say are not going to be liked. There was no one more gentle and more kind than the Prophet ﷺ. Can anyone think of someone more gentle and kind than the Prophet ﷺ? No. Yet they called him a liar. They called him a soothsayer. They threw stones at him. They poured the entrails of camels on the Prophet ﷺ. They beat him. This is what they did to the Prophet ﷺ. The fact is, at the end of the day, the truth is going to hurt. And some people, it doesn't matter how you put it the best way that you can, but the truth is not something that lots of people, they don't like to hear the truth. You just have to face that reality. And you have to understand, and this is really at the heart of what it means to be a Muslim, you must not care what people think about you. Don't care. You have to care what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala thinks about you. Because the heart of riyah, the heart of showing off, is caring about people and their opinions. I mean, you care about the people in the sense that you will care how they will think about the deen of Allah. Yes, the Prophet, although he knew who were the munafiqun, he knew the munafiqs, he knew the hypocrites. Allah told him from Revelation the names of every hypocrite. He could have killed them. He could have killed them. And in fact, the hypocrites are worse enemies to Islam than even the open disbelievers. But did he do that? No. Why? He said, I'm afraid the people will say Muhammad slaughters his companions. He wasn't afraid of what the people say exactly. He was afraid of the effect it would have on the dawah and the call to Islam. Yes? So we can be afraid of the people in that sense. Yes? Afraid of the impact of certain behavior and certain things on the dawah of Islam. I wish these brothers doing bombings would think about that. Okay? So this is the impact. But to be afraid of the people, no. We should be afraid of Allah. To care about the people and what they think about you, don't care about the people and what they think about you. Care about Allah. And there is a beautiful hadith that was narrated by Aisha from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You need to transcribe this hadith in your heart and in your mind. She said, whoever says or does something seeking to please the people, while this thing is displeasing to Allah, then Allah, in whose hands are all the hearts, will make those people displeased with that person. And whoever does something to please Allah, even though it is displeasing to the people, then Allah, in whose hands is all the hearts, will make the hearts of the people pleased with that person. Subhanallah. See, because Allah is the one who controls the hearts. Allah, you could do something and the people, you think the people hate it. And you think the people will hate you for it, although you know that this thing is pleasing to Allah. The truth is, Allah will make the hearts of the people pleased with you. Allah will make that happen. But you do something. You do something. Think, oh, if I do this or I say this, what will they say? What will they say? What will the people think? Well, I better go ahead and do this thing, this displeasing thing. Then you know what? Allah will make it in the hearts of the people to hate you and be displeased with you. Yes. And this is the nature, brothers and sisters. The worst thing we hate are hypocrites, isn't it? Isn't the worst thing people hate is someone who says something and doesn't do it themselves? You ever had a boss who goes around saying, you must be like this and do like this and be like this, and that boss himself is exactly the opposite? Huh? It's the same with any children. Children, they pick up on this fast. Yeah, but mum, you told me do that. How come you do it yourself? Huh? Oh, dad, you told me, but you do it. Because actually people live by example a lot more than they live by words. And when they see someone whose speech and action are the same, they respect it. They respect that person. The politicians I respect in England, for example, are the ones who speak their mind, even if the things they say are horrific, But at least he's honest. At least he's not like a snake in the grass, like half of these people, snakes in the grass. They say one thing and they mean something else, and they promise this and they break it. Who respects someone like that? No one. That's why politicians are so hated, because they spend their life promising one thing and then breaking their promises, because they always in the end had always intended to do something different. We don't want to be like that. So we have to drive out of our hearts this care about people. You need to care about Allah. You need to care about what Allah is going to think about you. You need to put always in front of you seeking the pleasure of Allah, not seeking the pleasure of the people. This is a very important characteristic that every da'i needs to develop within him or herself. So I'm just checking the... Okay. That's 12:30. Yes? Yeah. What? 12:30 p.m. Dhuhr. It's written down. Don't worry, I can continue for another half an hour. It's no problem. Saturday, it is Saturday? Yeah? Doesn't. You want me to go on half an hour? No, you want me to stop or you want me to go on? What time is Dhuhr? Huh? Okay. Because it's a good place for me to stop now. Yeah? Yep. It's a good place to stop, inshallah. Okay. Fantastic. Okay, brothers and sisters. So think over that, inshallah. Pleasing Allah and not the people, alhamdulillah.